All right. Hi, everyone. It's good to see y'all. Um, once upon a time, I think I used to teach from my 7 Steps journal, and then I stopped. I stopped to focus on gentle healing, guiding light, other things that I was doing at the time. And now I'm going to return to that teaching. Only I'm going to do it a little differently. I think I had left off somewhere in step 4, and I was teaching every single quote. I'm going to do a little differently this time. First of all, I'm going to be using Out of the Stillness, which is the published version of the 7 Steps journal. And I just recently published this. I think it was published, like 2 weeks ago? Yeah, I see some other people have it. That's good. As I'm reading it, I'm finding little things in it that I'm also fixing and uploading. So I want to let you know, nothing that I'm changing as far as the contemplation, but sometimes I'm looking at the wording and I'm thinking, you know what? I understand what that says, but another human might not. So there is some simplification going on. So there will be a revised version. Let me give you an example of some of this, and that revised version, I don't know when that will be. I'm actually uploading revisions all the time. Like I'll do 100 and then upload any revisions, then do another 100 quotes and upload revisions. So I don't know how long it will take, but let me give you an example. If you have the book with you already, I'll show you the one that's had the biggest change. Look at number 82. Just to give you an idea. And there's not a lot of these. They're rare, right? There are a few of them. But I want to give you an example. When I read number 82, I thought, you know what? I understand that, but I don't think anyone else will. And I didn't notice it when I was looking at the transcript on my computer. It's when I saw it in the book. It jumped out at me. So number 82, for example, the first paragraph said, total immersion practice is total being focus. Neither has to do with what the body is doing or not doing. Both are focus of mind, attention, being. Now, those words, I knew exactly what they meant. I felt like other people could totally understand total immersion practice if you just look at it long enough. I felt like other people could understand total being focus. But then I thought people might get confused by mind, attention, being. I thought they might look at that and really not know what that is. So the latest upload of this says, instead of both are focus of mind, attention, being, it says both are attention, being, focus. I don't know if that's a little more clear or not. Let me type this in, type these 2 words in, and you guys tell me. This is the first word. When they're hyphenated, they're intended as one word. There isn't actually an English word to cover the thought. So I'm creating words by putting words together, if that makes any sense. So what the word was when it first got published was mind, attention, focus. And it's being changed to attention, being focus. Does that mean anything different to you? And if so, what? I'd love to hear. Sina, you look pretty convinced. Yeah, Sina and then Ann.
Yeah, right away. Because of mind, I think mind of thoughts. I'm not thinking big mind like Buddha mind. I'm thinking like little minds, and that's integral, like it's all connected. And I know a lot of our practices here are disengaging from the thoughts and letting go of the thoughts. And when you changed it to being, that's like the essence. And so it, for me, it radically changed it.
Okay, and do you have something else you want to say?
No, Sina just said it perfectly.
Yeah, Melissa says she just got the book yesterday and had the revision already. So yeah, the first 100 were uploaded again last week, which included these changes. So there aren't a lot of these changes, and they don't change the actual contemplation. But some of them, as I'm reading, I'm realizing, I could make this a little more clear for other people who aren't inside of me, right? So there are some changes. And at the point where I'm done. When I have to read this book again, it could take another 6 months. But at the point where I'm done, I will just let you guys know in case anybody wants to get it again. I don't think you have to get it again. I think that the book is fine as it is, but some of you may want to. So I just wanted to let you know that that work is still ongoing, even though the book has already been published. The way I'm going to share this time is I'm going to only share from quotes that are pre-selected. So I'm actually going to start completely over again with step 1. I'm not going to start in step 4 where I left off X number of years ago. I'm going to start over in step 1, but I'm not going to be sharing from every single quote. Oh, you know what I don't have that I should go get? You guys can come with me. I forgot to grab the 7 steps. I want to be able to read the original quote. And I think that's probably downstairs. Let me make sure it's not right here. It might be right here. Oh, good. It's right here. I don't have to go downstairs. Yay, that made it easier. So I want to be able to read the original quote, and then I want to be able to read the contemplation. But again, I'm only going to be doing selected ones. So we are starting over at step 1, but I don't think we'll be here for the next 15 years, which we would be if I was going to do every single quote. So that sound good to everybody? You ready to play this game with me? All right, good. So let me look in out of the stillness and see what the first one is that I circled, because as I'm reading them again, I'm just circling ones that feel like that would be good. So the first one is number 11. So if you have either book or both books, you'll turn to quote number 11. The good news is they're numbered the same in both books. And what I will do is read quote 11 from the 7 Steps to Awakening first. And in case there's anybody who doesn't have it to read along, I'll read it twice. And then I'll go and I'll read from Out of the Stillness and then talk about it. And y'all can join me in the discussion. It can be interactive. Just as Sina said, remember this will be on YouTube. So, if you're like me and you didn't fix your hair, if you don't care, it's okay. But if you do care, and you don't want it on YouTube, then please don't participate, because we don't want to have to take this down later because you didn't want people to see your hair on YouTube. Is that fair? All right, so here we go. Number 11. What sort of knowledge is this wretched bodily mental knowledge of objects? I'm just going to read that again in case you don't have this. What sort of knowledge is this wretched bodily mental knowledge of objects? Would those who long for pure awareness hanker after this? To know pure awareness is true wisdom. All other knowledge is mere folly. And that's a teaching of Ramana Maharshi as written down by Muru Ganar in his book, The Garland of Guru's Sayings, which is one of my very favorite books. So let me read that again, number 11. What sort of knowledge is this wretched bodily mental knowledge of objects? And interesting, he made up a word too, bodily mental, right? That's a made up word. Bodily mental, at least to me, is saying from this point of view, mental. In other words, this point of view, mental, may have one knowing or knowledge, and another point of view, mental, may have another knowing or knowledge. And sometimes we even call those opinions, like they're really not even knowledge at all, right? They're perspectives, they're point of views. And that's why he's asking, what sort of knowledge is this? So what sort of knowledge is this wretched bodily mental knowledge of objects? Would those who long for pure awareness hanker after this? To know pure awareness is true wisdom. All other knowledge is mere folly. So now I'll go to Out of the Stillness and we'll see what I wrote down after I contemplated this. And this would have been quote number 11. We're talking way back in like probably November of 2011. I mean, this is a long, long time ago when this was written. If I give attention to a story or concept, and I see it as true or meaningful, I must want to give attention to it. If there was no interest in it, attention would not go there, just as it does not go to many things in my field of perception. Whenever my attention goes to a story or concept, I must look carefully and ask, is this what I want to pay attention to? Is this what I would take for real and valuable? Or do I prefer to know the truly real? Inquiry like this enables me to gently realize I want to refocus attention away from the story or concept and on the true self. I can ask, what is always here? What is constant? What am I? And then I can look toward the ever constant true self. So hopefully you can see how the quote and the contemplation fit together. It's talking about that bodily mental knowledge, which of course is perspective or point of view. And at the time that this was written, I still would have had a big challenge with my mind going to stories. I still would have had a big challenge with that. And so, of course, what I'm doing as I contemplate the quote, I'm not trying to figure out what the heck did Ramana Maharshi mean. That's never how I contemplate the quotes. I'm contemplating the quote and saying, what does this mean for me? How is this helpful to me now? Right? And so the answer that came to me as the result of the contemplation is exactly what was helpful for me at that time. So again, the realization that came first in the first paragraph, if I give attention to a story or concept and I see it as true or meaningful, I must want to give attention to it. Right? That's the very first realization. It's also an important realization. One thing that's really important on this spiritual path is that we are able to see what we are doing wrong without guilt. That's important. And by wrong, I'm just mean that it's pointing towards what isn't true instead of pointing towards what is true. But it's really important that we're able to do that without guilt. We want to see our mistakes. You hear that? The word want. We want to see our mistakes. How can we correct a mistake that we don't see? So there's a wanting here. It's a positive thing rather than a negative thing. So what I'm seeing here is that if I'm giving attention to a story, something spinning in the mind, I must want to give attention there. My attention is going to the story because I want to give attention there. And it's also wanting that's going to help me pull the attention away from the story. Right? It's all about what do I want? So if I give attention to a story or concept and I see it as true or meaningful, I must want to give attention to it. If there was no interest in it, attention would not go there, just as it does not go to many things in my field of perception. And how many of y'all have had somebody standing talking directly at you and you did not hear a word that they said? Right? Because the truth is you had more interest in your thoughts than what they were saying. So this is evidence that we do not pay attention to everything. In fact, I don't think we could pay attention to everything. Even in this one room, there are so many things that, it would be, it would just pull the attention in so many directions. It would probably feel like I was crazy if my attention went to everything. So our attention is naturally filtering out our experience because we can't pay attention to everything. So it's naturally filtering out our experience, but it's filtering out our experience based on what we want it to filter out. See, wanting, what do I want? So if my mind is going to a story, it's because I still want that. And this is important for me to see, because I can't change my wanting to my highest wanting if I don't even see the wanting. Does that make sense? So again, if I give attention to a story or concept and I see it as true or meaningful, I must want to give attention to it. If there was no interest in it, attention would not go there, just as it does not go to many things in my field of perception. Whenever my attention goes to a story or concept, I must look carefully and ask, is this what I want to pay attention to? That was a critical question for me. I don't remember the specifics now of things that my attention was going to. It could be going to worry about, particular people not liking me or not perceiving me the way I want to be perceived, or it could have gone to stress about, I'm sure it did, stress about all of the work I have to do, both housework and Awakening Together didn't exist yet, but, Foundation for the Holy Spirit work and mom work and dog owner work. And, all this stuff my mind would be focused on, or my attention would be focused on. And so when I would catch my attention in these types of energies, these types of stories, these types of thought, I would ask, is this what I want to pay attention to? I'm asking myself, what do I want? I'm not saying, is this what I should pay attention to? Is this what a good spiritual student would pay attention to? I'm not asking those questions. I'm merely asking, what do I want? Whenever my attention goes to a story or concept, I must look carefully and ask, is this what I want to pay attention to? Is this what I would take for real and valuable? That's the real is one thing, but the valuable is also important. Is it valuable is it valuable to me that I spend time worrying about how busy I am? Is it valuable to me that I spend time stressing over whether this person likes me or not, or whether they perceive me the way I want to be perceived or not? Is that valuable to me? That's a very important question. We have to decide for ourselves what's valuable to us. But you can't decide for yourself if it's valuable if you don't ever ask yourself that question. You see? Is this valuable to me? Is this what I want to pay attention to? Is this what I would take for real and valuable? Or do I prefer to know the truly real? I gave myself something to compare it to. Do I want to be worried about whether so-and-so likes me or not, or whether so-and-so perceives me the way I want to be perceived or not? Or do I prefer truth realization? So this allows me to kind of check within myself. Where do I want to be giving my attention? What is my treasure, as Jesus would say in the Bible, right? What is my treasure? And then I just state this. I state the fact. Inquiry like this enables me to gently realize I want to refocus attention. I'll finish that sentence in a moment, but I want to highlight the words gently realize. You know, one thing that I've observed in a lot of spiritual students in the years that I have been teaching is somehow instead of doing what they want or consciously doing it because they want it, there's some little voice and then telling them they should, and they're bad if they don't. So like the thought comes up, oh, here I am focusing on, you know, whether I want people to like me or not. I shouldn't be doing that. I have to. It's not gentle. I have to somehow find something else to pay attention to because I shouldn't be paying attention to this story. And, you know, it's kind of like using the ego to shift from the ego. And guess what? That doesn't work. It just keeps you in the ego. It might move you on a slightly different train of thought. Instead of now thinking about whether that person likes you or not, you're judging the heck out of yourself because you're a poor spiritual student, but you haven't left the ego. The only thing that I have found, and I am speaking from my point of view because it's the only one I have, but the only thing that I have found that allows me to shift from an ego state of thinking to clarity is realizing that that's what I want. That's what I want. There's a lot of power in that. And then I just shift because it's what I want, right? This is what I want. It's that simple. This is where I want to be. I don't want to be here. I want to be here. And then my attention just follows that choosing, that desire. And there's no guilt in it. There's no judgment in it. It's just a realization. It's just an insight about where I want to be. So inquiry like this enables me to gently realize I want to refocus attention away from the story or concept and on the true self. I can ask. Now, this is once I've realized I want to shift, at that point, I had to do something else. You know, like now I really can just shift into being. Then I couldn't. So if I was going to leave the object of story, I kind of needed almost like another object to replace it with. Eventually you don't anymore, but at that time I still did. So now what we're going to look at is what did I replace it with? So inquiry like this enables me to gently realize I want to refocus attention away from the story or concept and on the self. I can ask, what is always here? What is constant? What am I? And then I can look toward the ever constant true self. So I shift away from the story, which I've realized I don't want and I don't value. And I shift attention to the true self and start paying attention to that because I realize this is what I want to do. This is what I truly value. And so again, let me just read the quote and we'll see how the two fit together. The quote from the 7 steps. What sort of knowledge is this wretched bodily, mental knowledge of objects? Would those who long for pure awareness hanker after this? You hear the wanting in that? Is that what you want? Would those who long for pure awareness hanker after this? To know pure awareness is true wisdom. All other knowledge is mere folly. So I'll pause now and just see if anybody has anything they want to share after looking at quote 11. And if you do, you know, put up your hand. I can see everybody, so a physical hand would work. Melissa.
Hi, everybody, and hi, Regina, and thank you from my heart. And this is an easy one. The book. I was wondering what book to get, and I was a little confused. And I saw that online on Amazon or on the website. I don't care what I get it from, but can I see that book again, the 7 steps?
7 steps, yeah. And there's a newer one that has an orange flower. Either one is good.
Okay.
The only difference between the two, literally, is Michael found one typo and he corrected the one typo. I think it was like a TO that was supposed to be TOO or vice versa, something like that. And then he uploaded it with a whole new cover. So other than that, they're the same. But yeah, it's the 7 Steps to Awakening.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything that was easy. Anything else anybody wants to share? All right, Lena.
Hi, hello, Regina. Sorry, I cannot turn on my video. I'm not at home. I have all of your books, and currently I'm studying NTI, and I can tell you absolutely love it. Thank you so much. I religiously doing it every day. And last time I asked you, can I combine the Course in Miracles? And it came naturally. Even you said, if I can, I can do it, but it came naturally that it was too much. So I postponed Course in Miracles. And though I started yours Inner Ramana, and I'm doing it once a week, and I love it. So what do you think? Would it be too much for me? Because I have 7 steps to awakening, your book. However, I started to read and I felt that it's a little bit too much to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't do it if I was you. You can still listen to these, these 1-hour teachings every week if that's convenient for you. But as far as setting down in your own contemplation time, no, I wouldn't do it. I didn't do all these things at once, right? That's what I always tell people. I did them one after the other, after the other. I started with A Course in Miracles in 2004. It was 2005 when NTI started coming. It was 2009 when Inner Ramana started coming. It was November 2011 when I started this. You see, I wasn't doing all this stuff at the same time.
Right.
But it's still okay to listen to the teachings, but don't sit down in your own contemplation time and try to do it.
Mm-hmm. So you think it's okay if I will be here with you every week, just to listen? Yes, because I understand everything and I agree it makes more sense to me, but postpone it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. So tell you what, let's move on to number 23. That's the next one I have circled. Number 23, starting with the 7 Steps to Awakening. Knowing aright the nature of the true self and abandoning the non-self as void, unreal, is wisdom true. All other knowledge is ignorance and not wisdom. Now, in effect, this says the exact same thing as quote number 11. And I think this is why some people have trouble with the 7 Steps to Awakening. I've heard more than once when people contemplate the 7 Steps to Awakening, they say, the quotes are just saying the same thing over and over and over again. I don't know what to do with that. I've already contemplated that thought. So part of what we're going to see in a moment is what I did, and maybe this will help people to learn to contemplate, if that makes any sense. But let's read this quote again, and then we'll go see what I did with number 23. Knowing aright the nature of the true self and abandoning the non-self as void, unreal, is wisdom true. All other knowledge is ignorance and not wisdom. So here's what I wrote. This is again, number 23. Having experienced at least some sense of true self, settle for nothing less as real. The limited individual sense of personal I is nothing. Give it no value. When it seems to be me, step back into impersonal awareness with peaceful gratitude. Become comfortable there. And if you listen to this very carefully, you can see that I am writing instructions to myself. You see how I'm doing that? I'm telling myself what to do in order to move in the direction that I want to go in. Now, first, this starts off with having experienced at least some sense of self. I had my first realization of awareness as self in the spring of 2008. And in fact, it was after that that I began to play what you guys now know of as the awakening games. So I was in the process of playing awakening games when this was written. But I in no way identified with that as what I am. I still really identified with the person. At that point, I saw the experience of being pure awareness as a temporary experience that I could make happen every now and then. Does that sound familiar to you guys? Yeah, of course it does. So that's where I was when this was written. And of course, I, quote, made it happen every now and then by playing those awakening games. But what I'm telling myself here is I have experienced it. Okay, maybe just glimpses, happening. There's nothing constant going on here, but I have experienced it. So I'm telling myself, having experienced at least some sense of true self, settle for nothing less is real. Right? Don't settle for this person and this sense of personhood as real. Don't settle. This is what I'm telling myself. Having experienced at least some sense of self, settle for nothing less is real. The limited individual sense of personal I is nothing. Give it no value. This is me teaching me. In order to realize the true self, we have to walk away from identification with the person, body, mind as what I am. We have to walk away from. Nothing's going to tear us away from it. You see, we have to give it up. And so I'm teaching myself what I want. This is important still. I'm teaching myself what I want to learn. I'm teaching myself, give this no value. Now, the way that shows up in practice is when I notice, for example, that I'm about to defend myself to someone, I stop because I want to give this no value, right? So these aren't just words. This became practice. Oh, look how much value I'm giving this right now. I want, hear the word, I want to let go of giving this so much value. Oh, we got 3 people here. We got 3 point of views. He wants to eat there. He wants to eat there. I want to eat here. I'm going to drop mine. Right? Give this no value. That was a key practice. And it may sound demeaning to some to hear those words, but it wasn't demeaning because I knew what I wanted. And I knew I couldn't have both. Does that make sense? So give this no value, start devaluing this. It kind of reminds me of John the Baptist saying that it is time for me to become less so he can become more, right? It's time for this to become less so that the experience of true self can become more. You see how that works? But I can't keep valuing this and putting this on a pedestal and expect true self to become my consistent experience too. So, having experienced at least some sense of self, settle for nothing less as real. The limited individual sense of personal I is nothing. Give it no value. when it seems to be me, because that certainly happened all the time, right? When it seems to be me, step back, right? So that's what I said, this became an actual practice. When it seems to be me, step back into impersonal awareness with peaceful gratitude. The gratitude is gratitude to myself for doing what I want. I'm not forced to give up this argument or this debate. I am giving up this argument or this debate because this is what I want, you see? I'm not forced to allow someone to, quote, insult me and then let go of feelings of defense without ever defending myself. It's what I want, because I want to devalue this so that I can realize the true self. Having experienced at least some sense of self, settle for nothing less as real. The limited individual sense of personal I is nothing. Give it no value. When it seems to be me, step back into impersonal awareness with peaceful gratitude. Become comfortable there. Because our identification goes where we're comfortable. If I'm comfortable being the person, that's where my identification goes. So I want to become comfortable in just impersonal awareness so that my identification will begin to shift. You can't make your identification go somewhere. It's going to follow where you're comfortable. So I want to learn to be comfortable in impersonal awareness. And again, I can't be defending myself and comfortable in impersonal awareness at the same time. I always tell people they have no idea how many times a day I did not say something. They have no idea. Because I was not being Regina, which was me. I was not being me so that me could become less. And again, that quote was number 23, knowing aright the nature of the true self and abandoning the non-self. Do you see how this quote fits? And abandoning the non-self as void, unreal is wisdom true. Abandoning, that's a strong word. And would you say you're abandoning yourself when you're defending yourself? Would you say you're abandoning yourself when you're trying to get everybody to do things your way? So knowing aright the nature of the self and abandoning the non-self as void, unreal is wisdom true. All other knowledge is ignorance and not wisdom. So anything anybody want to say about quote number 23 before we move on? All right, then let's move on. Quote number 27 is the next one I've circled. Quote number 27 in the 7 steps says, mine is the only mind amenable to my correction, right? So my mind is the only mind I can correct. Mine is the only mind amenable to my correction. If one forgets this truth and broods, or I think it's supposed to be kind of like over in a poetic way. So I'm going to say over. I don't know if I can say this. If one forgets this truth and broods over others' faults, one only fouls one's own mind more and more. I can tell you guys understand that. You're shaking your heads, but I'm going to read it again anyway. Mine is the only mind amenable to my correction. If one forgets this truth and broods over others' faults, one only fouls one's own mind more and more. So let's see what I wrote about this. Ego strengthens itself through correcting others, while proper self-correction weakens ego. Therefore, only one type of correction has any possible benefits at all: proper self-correction. Now, what's interesting about this particular quote is that I wrote proper self-correction, which implies that there's also a type of self-correction that is not proper or not correct or not right. Proper self-correction is without judgment. It's without self-condemnation. It's without guilt. So again, if I'm telling myself that I'm a lousy spiritual student because I keep letting my attention go to stories or whatever, that is not proper self-correction. And again, this says that proper self-correction is the only type of correction that has any possible benefits at all. That's important. Correcting others has no possible benefit to you. Now, the mind will tell you differently, right? The mind will tell you that if everybody else behaves the way you think they should behave, then you're going to be happy. But have you ever thought about how many people there are in the world and how much effort it would take to even attempt to get everybody to behave the way you want them to? And how often do you think that's going to stick, even if occasionally you have a little bit of success with someone? So really what the mind is telling you, that you have to get everybody on the outside to behave the way you want them to in order for you to be happy, is guaranteeing unhappiness. So there's no benefit to that. It's always best to allow everyone to be exactly as they are. Let them worry about themselves, right? That's their business. The only proper self-correction, again, is correction without judgment, without guilt, without condemnation. But it isn't avoiding correction. I've known people who will make a mistake, and by a mistake, I mean, I don't know, let's say they got mad at someone and they cussed them out, and, they were just furious. Maybe the bank teller was too slow or something, and they just lost their temper and they cussed them out. And then they say things like, well, it was in the script. There's no self-correction there. You don't want to judge yourself for having lost your temper and cussing out the bank teller. But you do want to go home that night. If there's any guilt about it, if you judge yourself, there'll be guilt. You want to rest, accept, and trust through the guilt. And then once you're in a more clear space, you want to go back, if you can, maybe in your journal, and say, what was going on in my mind that led to me cussing out the bank teller? You want to see that, because that's not how you want to be. Am I correct? So you actually want to learn from your mistake. So you go back, you look at your mind, what was going on there? Oh, well, I had the thought I need to do this and this and this. And I allotted 15 minutes for the bank, and it was taking longer. And I was worried I was not going to get to this on time and not to this on time. And then I started worrying, maybe I'm going to show up in the sanctuary late. What are people going to think of me if I'm not up there for my teaching time? And all of this is what was going on in my mind as I was standing in that line. And that's why I got upset. Right? I was worried about what people would think about me. I was worried about being a loser, not getting to places on time. And so because my mind was focused on all of these wrong-minded thoughts, I blew up all over somebody else. So now I want to correct myself. Now I can't go back and change that. That's that. That's something we have to accept. But I want to be more alert to when those same types of thoughts are starting to run in my mind again. When I start to see these thoughts that, this person needs to speed up so I can get there on time, I want to recognize that's wrong mind. That's creating stress in me. I choose to trust everything as it is. I'm going to breathe and stay with that choice. Or whatever works for you. I often chose to just trust everything as it was. That was very healing for me. What happens as we make these kinds of choices is we actually start to reprogram this brain. Actually, you'll reprogram that brain. But what starts to happen is someday after practicing this is a practice, noticing that I'm thinking all of these thoughts, realizing these are not the thoughts I want to think, shifting to something that's more helpful, right? This is a practice. But eventually you go to the more helpful first and naturally, because the brain has been reprogrammed. So you're standing there in line one day, looks like you might be late to the sanctuary, and you realize, you know what? This must be perfect. I'm just going to text Sign and say, hey, Sign, I don't think I'm going to be there on time. And lots of times, what else happens? I know some of you all know this. You do come in, you're 10 minutes late, and you find out the discussion before you ran long, and that was perfect too. They kept talking for 10 minutes because you weren't there. And the truth was they needed to talk that extra 10 minutes. So guess what? Everything was perfect. But again, if I'm not looking at myself and discovering what's causing me to be upset at the bank teller, and I'm either blaming the bank teller or just without looking, saying it had to have been perfect when actually all that stuff is still in me, I'm not having the opportunity to correct. I'm not having the opportunity to change the conditioning in the brain. Nothing's going to change. So self-correction is valuable. Think about that. This is something you want. This is where a lot of spiritual students make a mistake. They think they don't want to see their mistakes. I've even had people tell me, Holy Spirit would never point out your mistakes. I'm thinking, boy, what Holy Spirit do you have? Because every time I sat down with my Holy Spirit and I say, what do I need to see that I don't see? It told me what my mistake was every time, but never with judgment, never with you're guilty, always with that attitude of here's how you can correct, right? An upward movement type of correction. So just like we want to devalue this as I, we actually want to value self-correction, value the opportunity to see our mistakes and learn to choose again or choose differently. The more you value self-correction, the faster you will go on this path. But remember, proper self-correction does not include judgment, does not include self-condemnation, does not include guilt. It's like an insight. It's like an aha. It's helping you turn in the direction you want instead of staying stuck in the direction that you don't want to be in anymore. Does that make sense? So again, quote number 27, number 27, first from my journal. Ego strengthens itself through correcting others, while proper self-correction weakens ego. Therefore, only one type of correction has any possible benefits at all: proper self-correction. And from the 7 steps, it said, mine is the only mind amenable to my correction. If one forgets this truth and broods over others' faults, one only fouls one's own mind more and more. Okay, Yuan, I see your hand. Go ahead.
So that correction sounds like implied there's a standard and there's an evaluation. I was just thinking about all this, to practice instrument, I'm self-correcting because I know that's the wrong note.
Right.
If I hear, okay, it's a wrong intonation. So I was self-correcting, there's no judgment. I just not doing it right, so I have to make it right.
Yeah.
For spiritual thing, it just like it also really need practice environment. Otherwise, how do I know if I'm studying NTI, study everything, and I'm just sitting here contemplating, every day. I don't think I have. Is it correction or self-correction? Only come with practice.
Yeah, and for me, the self-correction came after a mistake, which is important. Like contemplation, to sit down and contemplate spiritual truths, that there doesn't need to be a mistake in place, right? You're just getting up and you're grabbing your coffee or whatever, and you're contemplating. So for me, self-correction did always come after a mistake. I lost my temper with someone, or I got really fearful about something, really worried about something, or something. I knew that I went into my wrong mind. So the first thing that needed to happen is what I sometimes call true confession. I needed to admit to myself that I went into my wrong mind. Yeah. And then, as you guys know, the way that I usually practice self-correction was through journaling. I would sit down and I would start writing about it. Often I would write about what I perceived. I would write down the thoughts that I could remember that were in my mind. Sometimes just writing down the thoughts was enough. You're like, oh my goodness, look what I was allowing it. Look at that garbage, look what I was giving my attention to. But sometimes I would write down thoughts. That's still true. I still believe that's true. And so then I would have to start inquiring into it and learning to ask questions and digging into that thought a little more. Sometimes I just had to give my willingness for that thought to be healed. And I would do that by saying, I know that I believe that, but I am willing to see that I'm wrong. And I would just give my willingness. The one thing I wouldn't do is say, that is a true thought, I am right, and close the book. There always had to be at least willingness to see that I was wrong if I couldn't see it on my own. Of course, one of the biggest thoughts that was tough to let go of was the belief that I was the lowest person on the planet. I just had to keep giving my willingness to that over and over and over again until it was finally healed. So yeah, the self-correction, the reason the word correct is there is because a mistake was there. So you only bring the proper self-correction into play when you see that you've made a mistake. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so that means also the discernment has to be there. If there's no discernment, I didn't know I made the mistake. Everything is hunky-dory.
Yeah, but the discernment will be there, at least in my experience, as the desire for truth realization gets bigger, the pain of making mistakes also gets bigger. And so the pain is, you can't help but see that you made a mistake because it actually causes you pain. That's a little alarm clock. that tells you I need to go look, I need to go practice self-correction. And Melissa, we have 3 minutes. So if you can wrap up your question quickly, I'll give you as fast an answer as I can.
I can let it go. You go ahead.
Oh, I have nothing else to say. We can use the 3 minutes.
Okay. I just wanted to share because it just, what you guys were sharing there just brought up a memory I had. When I was pregnant with Seth, I wasn't married, and I had a job in Quincy, but I moved away, left my tenured job in Boca Raton as a biology teacher. And I can tell you that my life with my now husband was really intense. And but I remember I found out I was pregnant 3.5 months into it, and I went into 11 weeks into it, and I went into the doctor and I said, listen, my hormones are crazy right now, but I'm going to get an abortion. And I think that's going to solve things. But I think I want to get my thyroid checked. And I'll just never forget this. She's like, she just shut the door, blocked the doorway, set me an appointment to see ultrasound. They showed me the baby right then and there. All this stuff happened. And it's like, I can see this particular discussion today was the very first time that brought this memory up for me. And what it tells me is that you're fighting against your life every single day. And I guess I'm starting to see that all of these things in my head, Regina, are so blocked that, can't stand my body, this, that, the other, don't have any faith in me. I used to always say I felt guilty for sucking air, right? And for the first time, I can at least see, holy shit, I'm fighting this and my life is being led for me. I don't know how the hell I raised a kid. I mean, and I know I didn't, but do you know what I mean?
Well, and I think what you're saying too is a really nice symbol. When the doctor shut the door and did an ultrasound, she shifted your value system right there. Right? That's exactly, and that's really what we're talking about, is shifting what you value. And then because she shifted what you valued, you automatically went in a different direction, right?
Right. So no matter how hard I fight this, there has to be this inside of me. I guess I'm obviously struggling with trust. So I just keep asking for the willingness. And I think it was what you said. If you couldn't find it in inquiry, you just had to ask for the willingness. And that's exactly what I have to do every day, because inquiry is not helping, journaling, but the willingness. And so I think, this just made me remember that, so I could see it works, even if I'm fighting it for 20 years. 20 years later, I am. So hope I get it before I die. That's all I can say.
Breathe a little more. I can hear you holding your breath. So you'd be surprised how much breathing helps us. So whenever you notice that you're not breathing, step one, breathe. Really breathe. That is step one always. Breathe begins to shift us. So thank you. And we are out of time. So I will be back next week, and we finished with number 27. I'm putting this at the end of the recording, so if I need to listen to it, I can. We will begin next week with number 45. All right. See y'all.